you get going?
Start.
Just the way you start is by just saying, I've just observed.
In the actual thing though, do you start?
Yeah, I'll say to you, I'll just say to you, you know, you just observed, blah blah blah, and I'll tell you.
Solid.
Alright?
Yeah,
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit. Okay, I just observed the player playing the set on when I'm doing about the guy that wore yellow. He wore the yellow vest. I think he won, and his strengths for this guy were definitely his volleys and his finishing off the points were great. When he was coming into the net, he had the nice split step for the volley, and he was putting it away. I don't think one volley of his got returned. They were winners. I also thought his backhand was kind of a strength, although it was just had a strange technique, but it worked for him. You could tell he's been doing it, it's been grooved. He's been doing it for probably all his career that he's played. So, and he knew what to do with it. He was pushing it deep and he had a variety, he had the slice. I think his awareness and decision making were quite good. He knew where the court was, so when the opposition was hitting the ball, he knew when to leave it out of the back. Like on one, for instance, he served, the return was going long, it was only a foot long maybe, but he knew to leave it. And also his decision making, he knew like when he'd hit the shot, he knew when to go into the net, and he knew when to play the type of shots, like whether he needed to attack or defend. And his attacking was quite good. He was getting his approach shots into the net really deep, which give the opponent less time to pick out a shot. I think his forehand was a strength. He occasionally showed some power on it to hit some winners. I think he had a couple of forehand winners. I think for his weaknesses, I think his serve was ineffective. I think his first serve didn't seem to be as much effort into it as what could have been. He weren't really going for it enough. Maybe not using enough power, and his second serve, I'd say it was just average, his serve, to be honest, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But for his second serve, it was just literally just a second serve. It was another attempt. There was no variation or difference from the first. There was he didn't put any spin on it or anything. It wasn't particularly slower. Right? It was just another serve, basically, and he could try and get some spin involved on it. His returns were quite good. When the opponent served, he was getting his returns nice and deep. He was nice and ready for the serve. Split step just before he was about to contact on the serve, so he was ready. He moved quite nicely into it, and he got his returns nice and deep, occasionally up the line. I thought his tactics on his approach shots weren't the best, although his approach shots were okay, and I'd said they were a strength. But I think a lot of his approach shots were topspin. When this is when you brush over the top of the ball, so when the ball bounces it kind of skips on, but it bounces quite high onwards. If he was to use a slice approach shot, the ball keeps low, so this is making it more difficult for the opponent. I think he needs to start them tactics. A couple of his approach shots were quite short on the court, so probably not the best time to move into the net. So the ideal approach shot is nice and deep, slice, maybe into the corner. And also he was attacking. He was coming into the net off a cross court, which might not be the best idea because it leaves the other half of his home side vacant for the shot down the line if it's read by the opponent. I think another weakness was the technique on his backhand and also on his serve. On his serve, it wasn't really aesthetically pleasing. I thought didn't really look too sort of textbook, if you like. But again, I don't think he's likely to ever change it because I think he's been playing far too long with that action that he's used to it. It doesn't look really comfortable from the outside, but for him, if it works, then that should be alright for him. And also his backhand technique I didn't think was the best, although he knew what he was doing with the backhand and it was quite an effective shot. I just thought that the technique, it looked quite ugly, to be honest. Maybe that's too harsh a word, but again, it looked kind of odd. It was more of a jab rather than a nice smooth swing. It wasn't much take back, it was just kind of a jab, so he's not getting the maximum effect that he could have from the shot, to be honest. If he had a better technique, he could get a lot more out of the shot, maybe get some more winners or add more variation or anything. The ideal backhand, the preparation, the phases for the backhand, the first phase is the preparation, so that's he's in his ready position on his toes, he's got his racket in the middle, his eyes are focused, he's light on his feet, ready to move, and then initially, when you notice it's coming to his backhand, it's about taking the racket back to sort of just below waist height on the side, getting his feet into position, and his feet are sort of on a 45-degree angle in his right shoulder as a right-handed player. He's sort of in line with the ball, so there's a twist of the trunk sort of area. And the grip also is preparation. The grip is sort of, although you just sort of the shaking hands grip, if you know that one, is kind of just rotated forward, so that when you've got the racket held up, it's slightly angled forward, sort of ready for the top spin. That's for the top spin backhand. So that's his preparation, and then there's the execution. We said he's starting nice and low, and he's watching the ball all the way, and then he's coming from low to high, and he's hitting the ball. The contact point is out in front of himself, in front of the body. He's transferring his weight from his back leg to his front, maybe leaning in slightly with the shoulder. His arms are extended at the contact, and he's just brushing the back of the ball. That's for the top spin. And then the follow through is over the right shoulder, and then once he's achieved that, he's back into his ready position, ready to receive the next shot. And then there's the actual result of the shot, which is like obviously whether it goes in or not, but you can't be too focused on this. If he's been forced out wide, he needs to play his shot, not ball watch or anything, trying to just get back into the middle of the court in his ready position. Obviously, or if he's attacking shot, then he needs to go to the net or something. And then the overall efficiency, I think with this technique that I've just described, it's sort of textbook if you like, and then it looks nice. He's getting maximum effort, he's getting maximum power with his arm extensions, and but with his it's just a jab, so it's not. I think it's very efficient. I think he's using a lot of energy that he doesn't need to by just jabbing, because he's got a little backswing. But with better backswing, you could easily sort that out. And for main weakness, I'm going for the backhand. So I think the action plan, I think the time scale for the plan, I think would be 6 weeks, and then maybe twice a week for like sort of 20 minutes in each session. Maybe just his normal training. I think I'd work on the backhand. I think the coaching points again, I think I've just been through, but again it's just the grip that I described previously. Nice and low, maybe bending his knees even slightly, hitting it out in front again. And then the progressive practices that I'd use to coach this. First of all, as the coach, I'd just stand at the side of him and just drop a ball in front of him for him to just play the nice backhand. Again, focusing a lot on the technique more rather than the result, although you would make it easy for success so that he feels he's doing well. However, a lot would be focused on the technique in this action plan. So I just drop balls from next to him, as I just said, and let him just hit them, getting used to this new technique, maybe like using some positive reinforcement. If he's a good shot, then you like tell him it's a good shot. If he doesn't do it, then maybe not just tell him he hasn't done it, but say, oh, unlucky, next time we'll have it if you try this maybe. It's all about making it easy for him to do good and raising his confidence in the technique. Another next practice I'd use would be, I'd just be on the other side of the net and I'd just be feeding balls simply straight to his backhand, and again just stroking the ball over to the other side. Maybe if you got sort of 5 or 10 in, then we'd progress on to the next one where I'd have him stood in the middle at the back, and I'd just feed it a bit wider, and so that he's got to run across and sort out his feet and stuff, and play it up the line or across court, whichever he prefers. And then the next drill, I'd like restrict it to either definitely down the line or definitely cross court by using some cones, so sort of a target area. So to improve, obviously I got it nice, getting it nice and deep as well is a great thing. But coming off sort of the back corner, say aim for there, and then once he's got a few in of them, then I progress it again to sort of in a return to get someone to serve. Sorry. And then serve it to his backhand, sort of really powerful serve. So he's not got as much time to think about what he's doing. He's just got to react quickly, but still can obviously enforcing the technique all the time, so he can get his maximum thing out of the backhand. After that, I just progress it into sort of a game situation where the serving, but sort of encourage him to play the backhand more often. I'd like make up a rule that you only get maybe 2 points if you hit a backhand winner or if you force an error with your backhand. So obviously the incentive's there to go for it rather than to just play a normal game, maybe run around it or anything. We're working on the backhand. And then I think also during this the performance of the player on the video could have been affected by social facilitation, as he knows he's being videoed, and so he knows that if he knows that this guy is sort of judging his performance, this could have a negative effect, or it could have a positive effect on his performance. The negative effects could be his anxiety could increase. He could feel nervous as though he has to perform for the camera, and this could lead to his shots being over. He could get over aroused if he's like start stressing that he knows he needs to do good. He could be too up for it, and then over aroused. This is like sort of the inverted U theory, where you're over aroused, your performance suffers just as if you're under aroused. You want the optimum arousal level is sort of in the middle, where that's probably your zone of optimal functioning, sort of in the middle, where everything's just smooth, you're in total control. And then this actually occurs at with different levels of arousal depending on what sport you're playing. I think tennis is sort of a mid sort of arousal level is your best zone. You don't want to be too aroused, or you could just start blasting the ball all over the place, sort of just going for every shot, making rash decisions with your shot, and then obviously you'll suffer there because you won't win any points. Or if you're under aroused and you seem disinterested, I think you might not put in the effort to run for a ball that you could have actually got, or you might not really go for your shots as much. You might just keep simply just sort of rallying. So obviously in the middle, the inverted U is the best thing. It's also linked quite into the drive theory, which is simply just a straight line. As arousal increases, so does performance, but obviously this is only up to a certain point. I think for quite many players, as arousal increases, performance does, but obviously once you get too far, it can lead to the catastrophe theory, whereas you just got too aroused, you might lose the plot, to use a better sort of phrase, but maybe you sort of blast it out, or if he gets too worked up, he just like smashes the racket or something. That's an example from tennis. I think also from before I was talking about the inverted U and sort of the best arousal zone. I think his perceptual field is important, as he's just playing in the park. So if he's got low arousal, then his perceptual field is too sort of wide, and he's like not really focused on the game. So you might notice someone playing on the next court or something and be watching them when they're about to serve. And also, if he's too over aroused, then his perceptual field is narrow, and he might only be focusing on just like the ball and just whacking, trying to knock the cover off it or something. Whereas in sort of his zone of optimal functioning, his perceptual field is sort of the right width, if you like, and he's focused like on the other player and the ball, and just basically on his court, what's happening on his court. And in terms of the body during any shots, for the backhand, there's basically 3 joints involved on both arms for the shot. There's the shoulder, which is a ball and socket joint involving the humerus and your shoulder blade, and then there's the elbow joint, which is a hinge, and it involves the radius and ulnar and the humerus. And then there's the wrist, which is a condyloid joint, which is again involving some other bones. And then these are all sort of straight on connection with the ball. And there's all sorts of muscles involved in the shot. There's your pectoralis minor, pex major maybe. Sorry, and then there's the deltoid, the trapezius, all involved up at the top around there. There's the biceps femoris that can get involved. And you could even get involved sort of your wrist extensor and wrist flexor, sort of to get the flick on the racket if you're going cross court or anything. And then obviously there's the twist in the trunk, that's sort of a movement. And also through tennis, I think you would use all three of the energy systems. That's the PC system, the aerobic system, and the anaerobic system. An example would be, if it's a long sort of game, maybe 5 sets or more, then a lot of you may rely heavily on the aerobic system. This is like sort of do with aerobic capacity. So it's you're using you've got the Krebs cycle and stuff like that involved there, changing the pyruvate goes into the Krebs cycle, and ATP and stuff like that's given off. And that's for sort of long endurance sort of games, which tennis could be if it's a 5-setter. The PC system is sort of short bursts, so maybe if you're serving an ace, then you really want to power into it. What happens there, you've got your phosphorylcreatine molecule. This is broken down by the enzyme creatine kinase, and this releases energy, plus it also get your phosphate and your creatine, but it's the energy that's released, and this is involved in a coupled reaction. This energy that's released is then goes into synthesize up an ATP by joining the ADP and a phosphate. Using this energy, it joins into making ATP, which is then the energy. This is like useful for short bursts. The first reaction giving off the energy is an exothermic reaction, and the second reaction to make the ATP is an endothermic, as it's taking in the energy. And this is a coupled reaction, which obviously one wouldn't happen without the other. You wouldn't get the ATP made if you didn't break down the PC, because you need the energy. It's sort of used in both. And also for there's the principles of training, which I bring into the action plan slightly. It's the FITS principles, which is frequency, intensity, time and type. I think the frequency, as I said, is important that you don't go too much, although I could choose to use an overload. You could overload on any of the 4 principles. So frequency, I could increase the frequency. This would obviously put more stress on the body, but again it could make him learn it better. The intensity, I've sort of progressed the intensity with the drills. I think the first one is sort of, not that any of them are low intensity, but none of them are really max intensity until that's sort of the game situation. There's the timing and the type. Obviously, again, if you overload any of these, it could lead to an improvement in performance. But obviously, you don't want to overload them too much, or it could result in tiredness, fatigue, all sorts. And then there's all sorts of stuff like that could happen. And then again, the history of the tennis is quite interesting, to be honest. Tennis, as I saw in the video, sort of originates from lawn tennis, which is actually played on grass. Although you were playing in the park on just a hard court. I think it wasn't played in public schools, the lawn tennis, because during stage 1 they weren't really interested. The masters and stuff weren't really interested in the sports. And then, but tennis, sort of just after the Industrial Revolution, lawn tennis sort of came about. It's because this is when the middle class emerged, as initially they were only the upper and lower class. But after the Industrial Revolution, we've got the emergence of the middle class, and these sort of people would have sort of garden parties in the sort of gardens, obviously. And this was once played. The idea of lawn tennis was once played by, I think it was a Major Wingfield, I think at one of his garden parties. I think he'd seen sort of real or royal tennis, what it's called, either of those, and I think that's been played by the upper class for years. I think he sort of wanted to get in on that action, kind of, as to say. But again, he's the only middle class, so he couldn't really afford the specialist equipment or facilities needed. So he played lawn tennis at his garden party. The court was an hourglass shape, which is quite interesting, and obviously it's not these days. And also women could play at this time, which is different to quite a few other sports. But it was quite strict. They had to conform to the Victorian dress code of the time, which was sort of barely any skin showing or anything. They had hats on, a long dress. This restricted movement, so they tended to stay at the net. And also they weren't allowed to sweat, but they had to glow, not sweat. So obviously they let the men do the runarounds at the back of the court while staying at the net. It was only the people that were invited to play that could play lawn tennis at the time in the middle class, but they were great. There was more sort of social environment. It was played in sort of the garden parties. Maybe someone was trying to make a business deal, or it was just a gathering of a few friends. As I said before, the idea I think that Major Wingfield got was from having seen or heard about royal tennis, which was being played years before, back in popular recreation, before the Industrial Revolution. It was being played, it was solely the upper class, as in these specialist facilities. It's played indoors, actually on a court. So the lower class obviously didn't have really much money. They were illiterate, so they didn't have good jobs, so they didn't have much money, so they couldn't get the court or the equipment. So it was just the upper class. There was also quite limited numbers due to a lack of facilities. They'd have to have it inside the big houses. However, at the time, they limited travel, so people couldn't really move to play the game. They sort of had to play at their own house if they had any facilities. And there's quite a lot of equipment, and well, obviously there's racket and the ball. It's played by, as I said, it was the upper class again. This is different from many other the popular recreations, and also it's not sort of aggressive or cruel or violent like a lot of the others at the time. Royal tennis, it's more sort of skill based, which is kind of, it's sort of, you can see the progression into the rational recreations that we know. The cruel and violent games reflected the lifestyle at the time, because they were harsh and tough. They were working on farms, they were many people. And however, the upper class, they had quite a lot of spare time. They didn't really do much work. They sort of owned the companies, sorry. So they had more spare time on hands. And basically, that's about it. Cheers.